We're good?
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to move now to the first question period. At our first question period, we will answer questions from the floor for a maximum of 25 minutes. We limit it to 2 questions per person, a short preamble, your first question, and a follow-up question if you want. And I'll remind you, it's a question period, not a debate period. After questions from the floor, we will answer questions from residents that have been submitted online until 2 p.m. today on any topic. The same rule, 25 minutes total, 2 questions per person maximum. In the second question period, we will take questions pertaining only to the agenda submitted via our website during this meeting. We limit it to 10 minutes from the floor and 10 minutes online. So if somebody has a question, please step up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and please go ahead and ask your questions.
I'm short. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. My name is Evelyn Pitka, and I live at 35 Westland, just over there. And that's my first question, because we're having an issue with traffic down there, and it seems to be due to, I think, all of the road work, and people think they found this miraculous shortcut to Highway 20, and Westland is a cul-de-sac. So there are 2 problems in terms of signage, and I'm wondering if the town could consider doing something about this. The first is there actually is a sign on the southwest corner of Bryn Mawr and Avon that says no access to Highway 20. But that sign is not visible. It's been knocked over by several snowplows, so it's sitting askew behind the traffic light. So people have no clue, and we see it quite frequently that people get stuck trying to get around the corner. They don't know where they're going. The other issue is, and we have increasing numbers of young families on our street now, if we could have a sign at the corner of Bryn Mawr and Westland indicating that Westland is a cul-de-sac, and that would hopefully stop people coming around. And they don't drive slowly either. They think they found this miraculous shortcut. So is that something that is reasonable to propose to council, because it is a public safety issue for us?
Elizabeth, do you want to take that back to Public Works and see if they can do something?
I certainly can take it back to Public Works, and maybe, I don't know, perhaps we can have Public Security weigh in on the signage issues as well.
Okay. Oh, so we're already sending it off to Public Works and Public Security now.
Great, thank you.
Now, I don't know how quickly if they have to order new signs, I don't know how long that's gonna take, Mrs. Pitka, but at least if there's the one that the one that's been knocked over,
Yeah.
if they can straighten that up, that's something could be
That
done.
would be great,
Should
because
be
it's
shorter.
quite useless
Okay.
as it is. Second issue that I have, and I think I've probably taken on the name of Bat Lady in the last couple of weeks, and that has to do with wildlife control. We certainly have an increased amount of wildlife in the area, but 2 weeks ago, I had a sick or injured bat that was on my property. So I went to the Montreal-Ouest website, which says, if you have a sick or injured animal on your private property, call the SPCA. Well, guess what? The SPCA does not actually have a contract with Montreal-Ouest, or Montreal-Ouest apparently no longer has a contract with the SPCA. The bat ultimately died, and thankfully Public Works came around and collected, because it was in the front of my house. But I literally spent the entire weekend on the phone with the SPCA and getting lots of unhelpful advice from people saying, oh, just leave it, it's resting, but it was right by my door. And ultimately what the SPCA said to me when they were ready to send somebody out, the first thing was, oh, our patroller isn't vaccinated against rabies, so why don't you take a broom and knock it into a box and take it out to a field somewhere. And when we ultimately determined that somebody needed to come and get this bat, they said, you're in Montreal-West? Well, Montreal-West is cost saving, so they no longer have a contract with us to come and collect injured animals in Montreal-West. So if that's in fact what's happening, and that was the runaround that I had from the SPCA, could the website please be updated, because we have a lot of wildlife these days, and injured wildlife, and I've called a couple of times now about dead or injured animals.
So in terms of the SPCA, as far as I know, they never took care of wildlife. When it's wildlife, we usually have to go through these private contractors. I know I had a squirrel running around in my soffit. It was a different contractor I went to come to get rid of it. Now, in terms of the other things, I thought we still had a contract with the,
At least we get invoiced.
I'm sorry?
At least we get invoiced.
So we're getting invoiced, Mrs. Pica, so,
Okay, so they told me that there is not a contract to come, so they would come for a sick or injured wild animal.
okay.
If you have wild animals that are invading your house, then absolutely you have to call skedaddle.
Right,
Skedaddle to pick up a dead bat, by the way, was $400.
right.
So just, could we get that clarified, please? Because, you know, I'm part of the residents' Facebook group, and people are posting questions. So so-and-so's found an injured squirrel or a raccoon on their
Okay.
property. Who do you call? And I've always said, call the SPCA, based on what was on the town's website.
Claude, do you have something you want to add there?
As I said, I'm surprised at the idea that we wouldn't have a contract because we're paying. But on the other hand, a contract with the SPCA is not necessarily a full-fledged contract to do everything, so maybe it's just a matter of checking what exactly is included or not included.
Okay, because they told me that, in fact, what happens is Public Security or Public Works picks up a stray dog or a stray cat or a stray animal and takes it there. But in terms of coming and collecting injured or sick wildlife, you know,
We'll get that updated on the website.
that would be
Mrs.
great.
Pica. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Kathy Faludi from Garden Road. I saw those posts. I have a morbid fear of bats. Even saying the word terrifies me. So when I saw that, your problem, I was happy it wasn't my problem. I have two things to raise, and maybe a third little one since you're not inundated with other questioners. The first is, and I wrote last month to council to ask this question, but the feed cut out before my question was answered. So if I may try again, it's about R.D. Paul Park, where in increasing numbers people are coming to walk their dogs off leash, particularly early in the morning, and especially in spring before there were a lot of kids around. I think I've asked or raised this question before. At least could you put up a sign like you do in other parks? People who were very close to Côte Saint-Luc, and so people who don't live in Montreal-West may not know that you cannot use a kiddie park, especially for a dog walking expedition. I've talked to a few people who I see going in there. Some people just say, oh, I didn't know, and leave, and some people have been fairly rude and abusive to me. And I've been told that I could call public security, but I really would rather not spend my time on the phone calling people. Just so, at minimum, if there's a sign, and perhaps when the PSOs circulate in the area, they can give a little look inside.
Councillor Small Pennyfather, I know you probably
Yeah.
answered it last time.
I
Maybe you
did.
want to go
Yeah, I
ahead.
did answer your question, so
Oh,
yes,
but
I
It
agree.
wasn't recorded, so.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. So there have been issues with people having their dog off leash.
Yeah.
There was a temporary park, as you may be aware, where the current recreation center is being built. We no longer had the temp and have now, let their dogs off leash. I've been very, I have very strong opinions. I have my own 2 dogs, and I've been very clear that the bylaw exists and your dogs need to be leashed at all times when on public property, that parks are not to let your dogs run. Public security has also been made aware. If there's signage, again, we can look at sending some information to Public Works if there's additional signage that we can put on the parks. I, like you, have had interactions that have been very rude as well when I've asked residents or non-residents to leash their dogs. But if it's important, though, if you do see an infraction occurring, and I understand that your time is important, but it's important because then public security can go over it during something is actually happening, and then we can actually apply fines to people who have their dogs off leash. But there is also new legislation as of a couple of years ago. It's provincial legislation that exists where the municipality has absolutely no weight, and that's if a dog and it's for protection of everybody. It's for protection of the person with the dog, and it's for protection for people who are, or other dogs as well, is a provincial legislation that exists. So if a dog harms a person or another animal, that they can be forced to have an evaluation by a veterinarian, and if, depending on what the injuries are that are sustained, the municipality has absolutely no power in this, but a dog could be forced to be euthanized. There have been instances across the country, in Toronto, in Calgary, and other cities in Canada that have similar legislation. So I keep repeating this over and over, almost in every single council, because someone has brought this up. But we are aware that there is an issue. We have public security here in the back as well, so they're aware. But I do encourage you, if you do see it happening, you don't need to engage yourself, but do call to public security, and then they can go immediately and see and witness what is happening, and then issue some fines. But we can look at as well if Public Works can add a sign in that area.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I did call once last year.
Okay.
But really, I mean, there's a no vaping sign. I mean, what 9-year-old is going to vape? But there's no,
Understood.
sign that says no dogs off leash, fines, that sort of, anyway, that's it.
Okay.
My second issue is also about traffic safety. I know everybody in Montreal-West thinks their street is the most dangerous concourse on the universe, but there's one difference with Garden Road, which is there's a park at the end of this very, very small street, and Garden Road is very often used by people turning, I don't know my east, from turning east off Garden and then cutting through to Côte Saint Luc Road, thereby cutting out a whole section of. And I know I do follow discussions at council, and I know that there has been traffic studies done on our street, and I know somebody said that they couldn't put up speed bumps because the blocks were too small.
Okay.
However, there's a stop sign at Ballantyne, which people just blow through automatically, and by the time you've blown through that, you've also picked up enough speed to go careening around the corner. And I'm going to make a suggestion. I know it takes a long time for these things to get processed and for any kind of change made. Can you, on an interim basis for the summer, make Garden one way from Brock to Ballantyne going west, and one way going east from Westminster to Ballantyne, so that the two streets kind of meet at Ballantyne. The street meets at Ballantyne, so people won't cut through because because it's blocked, and it basically would be a trial to see if it minimizes the traffic and minimizes the danger to the kids who are going to the park. And like the other person said, since I'm on that street, the population has changed over. We have about 14 little kids who live in this very small quadrant. So I believe that there's somebody on Garden Road who's on the traffic safety committee.
Yes.
And I think he
Yeah,
could probably corroborate.
No problem.
Yes,
It's definitely something that we're not sitting again until the fall, the Community Safety Committee, but I can discuss it with the lieutenant. And if you could send me an email just a little bit more details of what you discussed about closing one. But we always, of course, as you're aware, because we're such a small town, a lot of times when we take an action in one part of the town, it causes an issue in another part of the town or on another street. So we really have to do an evaluation of the sector. We could also put potentially up, that's not a traffic study, but we do have, we're able to use a Doppler in that area to give us a little bit more information. So it time dates and stamps what is occurring, when is occurring. It can measure volume, it can measure speed. So we can maybe use that as a point of departure, and then based on the data that we receive from that, we can then take some follow-up actions.
Okay, thank you. And may I just,
Go
one
ahead,
more
Mrs.
little
Falloon.
thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's obvious I'm not a very tall person, but leaving Garden Road, I have to look both ways on Westminster,
Right.
and on the northwest
When you want to
northeast
make a
side,
right, when you want to make a
When I want to
right,
make a left.
you want to make a left, okay?
There's the sign, it's a Montreal-West sign that says no turning between 4 and 6 and
Right.
whatever, and it's right in my way as I'm trying to, so I have to inch out really fairly far into Westminster before I could see
What's coming?
what's
A car
coming
coming.
I got you.
south.
Okay.
So that's
So
all
you're saying the
somebody-
sign is obstructing your
Yes.
view to be able
Yes.
to determine if it's safe
Yeah,
for you
like
to turn?
I have to really creep out before I can assure myself there's nobody coming south
Hmm.
on Westminster. And then I can make my turn.
Going, you're trying to turn south and you're making sure nobody's coming from the north
Yeah,
direction,
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So I guess,
That's it.
yeah, and that's
It's like
something
a
that
really
Public
big
Works would
sign.
also have to evaluate as well.
Maybe it can go
Okay.
on the other side of the road.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Faludi.
Thank you.
So we're going to move now to the questions that were asked online. First question comes from Denis Frenette, 303 Avenue Strathern. Où êtes-vous avec la mise en place d'un nouvel abreuvoir canin au Parc des Chiens? Merci. Councillor Yulin, please. s'il vous
Oui,
plaît.
merci Denis pour votre question. Le nouveau fontaine sera installé la semaine prochaine. C'est tout.
Merci pour votre question. Next question is from Eileen O'Reilly, 139 Percival. I send this comment question reluctantly because I fear the response will be the same one the residents always receive. We need a grant to do roadworks, but I wanted this on record. I fell while walking my dog last week when my foot became wedged in a huge hole in the sidewalk on Curzon near Wolseley. I badly sprained my ankle and banged up my knee. I left wondering how often residents experience such things and if the town will be fixing some of the horrible sidewalks in the neighborhood. Our population needs and deserves safe walking, driving conditions. Councillor Yulin, please.
Thanks very much for your question, Eileen. So we do have to wait for grants to do road work, infrastructure work, but that doesn't mean we wait for grants to do sidewalks. We do sidewalk repair every year. So I would ask that you give a call to Public Works, identify where this particular sidewalk is damaged, and they'll make note of that because, as I say, we do sidewalk repair every year, some replacement as well. And so if there's a damaged sidewalk in your vicinity, we want to know about that so we can come and patch it up. Thanks for your question.
Thank you very much, Councillor Yulin. Thanks for your question. Next question comes from Debbie Josephson, 146 Easton. Is council considering allowing homeowners who are struggling with invasive Norway maples on their properties to be able to remove the trees? Those of us who have homes backing into the ravine have seen exponential growth in these trees, and the diverse ecosystem which helps retain the soil is being destroyed. Toronto has an organization responsible for the preservation of the ecosystem of their ravines, and their Norway maple is identified as an invasive species that homers are expected to remove. Thank you, Debbie Josephson. Councillor Torres, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for bringing this issue to our attention. And thank you for sending also the article. I have not been able to read it, but I will read it tomorrow or after. I had spoken to you about doing a little bit of research about all these invasive species to find out what other towns are doing to maintain them or keep them in check. But as it is, our bylaws at the moment state that we cannot cut trees unless they're deceased or they are decay or they're dangerous they pose a safety issue. One of the things that I can advise, and I know some of the towns are doing, including Toronto, is the advice that when the trees are very small, the samplings, less than 10 centimeters in diameter, to cut them. I know every year I cut 1 or 2 just to try to avoid them to grow, because once they start growing, they grow so fast. In any case, I'm going to do a little bit further research and write an article about it at the beginning of the fall. So I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Torres. Thank you for your question. Merle McPhail, 8023 Avon. Again, the residents of Avon found out that no work is scheduled for our road due to Montreal's water line work. It's been almost 10 years since we've been asking when our road will be redone. Every year there's been some excuse or other. Since the traffic light installation, moving the bus stop, the never-ending construction of the Easton, our area has become a real hazard to our physical and mental health. Basic work like potholes has been ignored. When can we expect this necessary work to be done as this road is a mess? Councillor Yulin, please.
Thanks for your question, Merle. So Avon Road is set to be resurfaced, repaved this year, actually. So that doesn't mean infrastructure work going all the way down to the pipes, but certainly it will be repaved almost certainly this fall. So thanks for your question.
Thank you very much. Next question comes from Mark Johns, and I think it was the same thing like you, Mrs. Faludi, because I found it in last month's ask. So he asked again, maybe because it got cut out. So I'll read it again. Mark Johns, 351 Brock Avenue North. I was wondering if you are aware that there are several apparently abandoned vehicles in our municipal parking lot on Northview, just past Brock North. There is a pickup truck, a backhoe, a trailer, a camper, a Zodiac boat that have not been moved from their location for a very long time. I would really appreciate if you could provide some clarity on the issue. Thank you. Councillor Small-Pennefather, please.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Johns. Yes, so we have advised public security with regards to this same situation as that was brought up last week, and we are able to verify that everybody actually does have the parking permit for those items that you mentioned. What we need to do is look at our bylaws in terms of what exactly where we may have some gaps in terms of parking versus storage. So we will be looking at that in the very near future of how we can update our bylaws in some of our parking lots. As I am aware, there are a number of vehicles or recreational type vehicles that have been in some of our parking lots for an extended period of time, but I can confirm that permits have been indeed paid for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Small-Pennefather. Next question comes from Sid Ryan, 162 Sheraton Drive. Can we consider banning or limiting the use of gas-powered lawnmowers due to their loud noise and pollution? This measure would encourage residents to transition to quieter, less polluting electric mowers, while still allowing the use of existing gas-powered motors within the designated time frame, for example, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you. Councillor Yulin, please.
Thank you for your question, Sid. We can certainly look at that. It's not something that's high on our agenda. We just banned, as you know, gas-powered leaf blowers, and so far so good with that. But going the next step to the lawnmowers is something we'd have to take into consideration. But thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you very much, Councillor Yulin. Thank you for your question. Next question from Marissa Cesari, 416 Avenue Hudson. Are there any plans to place speed bumps on Radcliffe between Westminster and Hudson? During the 5.5 years that I've lived on Hudson, I've recorded dozens of drivers that literally fly through the stop signs. The worst is going westward on Radcliffe. In the earlier years, I asked the town and they referred me to the police station. The police station sends me back to the town. Who's responsible for this? I have video proof should it be required. Councillor Small-Pennefather, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, Marissa. So there's two issues here. One is a speed bump, and the second is speeding or somebody not respecting the stop sign. So with regards to the speed bump, we can actually bring this to the Community Safety Committee to look at. We can also, as I had recommended on Garden, we can put in something that it's a Doppler that can measure speed and can measure volume of vehicles. But when it comes to the vehicular code and somebody breaking the vehicular code, as in not respecting a stop sign, that is the jurisdiction of the police and the SPVM. That is not the jurisdiction of our bylaw officers. So for that specific complaint that you have with regards to the stop signs, you'll need to raise that one specifically with the SPVM, and I can send you the link for that where you can make your complaint. And I do know that the SPVM representative from Station 9 actually sits on our Community Safety Committee. So I know that she does review all of the complaints. So I strongly suggest that specific complaint, but the one with regards to the speed bumps, we can actually have a look at ourselves as part of the Community Safety Committee, and I'll put that on the agenda for our next meeting when we resume in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Small-Pennefather. Thank you for your question. Jennifer Melnick, 140 Ballantyne South. With the construction of the new rec center removing a large portion of the park, activities seem to be more frequently organized at Davies Park. A large section of the park is bordering Westminster. It's very busy and not necessarily a safe place for children to play. Would the city consider putting up a fence along Westminster to make this park child-friendly? Councillor Feeney, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question, Jennifer. Yeah, just in terms of the number of activities, they haven't actually differed substantially at Davies Park this year, and we're not sure in the future whether more activities will be moved elsewhere. So that's to answer that part of it. But no, at the moment we do not have any plans to erect a fence along Westminster. Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, Councillor Feeney. Thank you for your question. Next question from Christopher Moray, 183 Brock Avenue. I have a question about the law concerning the garbage bins and how a lot of people, residents, leave them out in plain sight. Bylaw 4213 and 4214 stipulated that bins should be put away or hide. My pet peeve is that the apartment that were developed where the BMR wood yard used to be don't abide by the bylaw, as well as some residents. Please have these bylaw enforced. Councillor Lawrence Malpennefather, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and merci pour votre question, Monsieur Morin. This was also last week, but I'm assuming it got cut out during the feed again, so you are correct in terms of the bylaws that exist, in terms of garbage bins and recycle bins and composting bins. So public security has been made aware, and they will need to be able to verify for them to be able to actually issue a fine. So I would propose that the next garbage pickup, which is a week from today, that we can have perhaps public security go by, and even perhaps this coming Thursday for no, it's garbage on Thursday. We had recycle. Yes, we had recycle today. Sorry. So the garbage is on Thursday. So perhaps we can have public security go by on Thursday to make sure that this area is respecting, or these apartment residents are respecting the bylaws and making sure that they remove their bins appropriately as per the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Small-Pennefather. Thank you for your question. Next question is from Jim Mullally, 112 Broughton. What is the status of the recreation center construction? I assume there are payments required for milestones met by SAJO. What are the milestones and the suggested scheduled completion dates? I'll let Councillor Feeney answer the second part. In terms of the scheduled completion dates, the original scheduled completion date was February of 2025. We're hoping everything gets completed by summer of 2025. Councillor Feeney, if you can answer some of the financial questions.
Yes, thank you very much for your question, Mr. Mullally. As with many construction contracts, we are billed and we pay based on the percentage of the work completed minus a holdback. So that is what we've done so far. It's not really based on particular milestones. To date, we have spent about $7 million on the recreation center, but that includes not just payments to SAJO, it includes payments for our architects, payments for our project management, and a few other lesser areas. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Feeney. Thank you for your questions. Marcia Millstock, 80 Brock Avenue North. We found out that because our air conditioner compressor are at the side of the house, they somehow have to be camouflaged. If we put some sort of trees, then there would be an issue of an exit compromised in case of a fire. If we put some wood paneling to obscure them, how would, if need be, repairs be done? Another point is that I have plants growing there. This helps when we have a great amount of rain and is then absorbed by the plants. Putting a barrier there would kill my plants. Many homes are in the same predicament. I'm looking at the side of my house presently and I can see the water meter. That is not an eyesore. I think that this issue is ridiculous. My side garden has plants that are more or less obscuring some of the unit, and we will continue to grow to the point of obscuring it totally in time. I absolutely think this is very petty and really not necessary. This is for Councillor Torres, please.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Marcia. As I drove by today her place and I visited and she was outside and we had a really great conversation. So I want to thank her for sensitizing us to this issue. We need to have a little bit more discussions because she does bring a lot of interesting points in here. In her case, she does have a lot of plants that camouflages most of that. So her issue is not as strong as other places where the units are completely exposed and they need to go. So we deal with one house at a time, and Anyhow, so that's it. Thank you so much, Marcia, and you brought really good points. We will be discussing a little bit further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Torres. Thank you for your question. Last question from Karen Donnelly, 195 Wolseley North. When will Montreal-West enact bylaws to protect us from the dangerous pollutants emitted by wood-burning fireplaces? It is well accepted that burning wood is a major source of fine particulate smoke that exacerbates asthma and has many other toxins negatively affecting people's health. I can smell it in laundry I hang out in the winter, in my dog's fur after she's been outside. Most other municipalities on the islands have already taken action. For example, Dorval enacted its bylaws in 2018, Montreal in 2015. Why is Montreal-West taking so long to recognize this and take action on this danger? Ms. Donnelly, just so as Councillor Yulin mentioned before, this is one of the initiatives that is being brought up to council so that we can position ourselves and come up with some kind of a bylaw to address the wood-burning fireplaces. So that's to be discussed at upcoming meetings. That's it for our question period, our first question period. We'll now go back to the agenda. Règlement de gestion contractuelle, rapport annuel. Conformément à la ligne 7 de l'article 573.3.1.2 de la loi sur les cités et villes, un rapport du greffier est déposé résumant les points principaux relatifs à l'application du règlement de gestion contractuelle pour l'année 2023. Just to give you an idea, we have to submit a report every year about the contracts that we've submitted, the procedures that we followed for the management of these contracts. Approval of disbursements, May 25th to June 21st, 2024.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move that the list of accounts payable from May 25th to June 21st, 2024, totaling $5,416,936.65, be approved and paid as listed.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney. Seconder, please.
I second it.
Thank you, Councillor Yulin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Délégation des pouvoirs pour le mois de juin 2024.
Je propose que soit approuvé le rapport de la directrice générale concernant l'exercice des pouvoirs délégués en vertu du règlement numéro 2005-002 pour le mois de juin 2024.
Merci, la conseillère Small-Pennyfather. Je peux voir l'appui, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, je l'appuie.
Merci, la conseillère Torres. Tout en faveur, s'il vous plaît?
Oui.
Oui.
Parfait. Site Planning Projects and Architectural Integration Program, SPAIP.
I move to acknowledge receipt of the minutes of a meeting held by the Planning Advisory Committee, PAC, on June 19th, 2024. To approve as presented under the SPAIP the following plans submitted to this meeting in accordance with the recommendations of the PAC as outlined in the minutes. 213 Bedbrook, replacement of a window and a door by a bay window. 53 Valentine North, replacement of the front railings. 249 Sheraton, painting of the cladding on the main facade and garage door. 234 Wolseley North, replacement of 5 windows. To approve with conditions under the SPIP the following plans submitted to this meeting in accordance with the recommendations of the PAC as outlined in the minutes. 50 Westminster South, replacement of the exterior emergency staircases, and 150 Easton, enlarging the patio door on the back facade and removal of a window on a lateral facade.
Thank you very much. Councillor Torres, can I have a seconder, please?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Small-Pennyfather. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I think one of the last things is designation de maire suppléant. The last people who held the office of pro mayor, starting with the most recent incumbent, were Councillors Small-Pennyfather, Colleen Feeney, Maria Torres, and then Elizabeth Yulin. Alors, si je peux voir quelqu'un pour proposer le nouveau désignation.
Oui, Monsieur le maire. Je propose que la conseillère Elizabeth Yulin soit nommée à titre de mairesse suppléante pour les mois d'août, septembre, octobre et novembre 2024. Numéro 2, que la conseillère Elizabeth Yulin soit aussi désignée pour remplacer au besoin le maire Benny Massala au conseil d'agglomération et qu'une copie certifiée de la présente résolution soit transmise à ce propos si nécessaire au conseil d'agglomération. Numéro 3, que cette nomination prenne effet le 1er août 2024.
Merci, la conseillère Small-Pennyfather. Je peux voir l'appui, s'il vous plaît?
Oh, oui, je l'appuie.
Merci, la conseillère Feeney. Tout en faveur, s'il vous plaît?
Oui.
Parfait. And that's it there. We're just going to see if there's any questions okay, no questions were asked online. Do folks have any questions that were pertaining to the agenda? Please.
So I actually have a question regarding permits. And the permit, I understand that, you know, there are a number of reasons to require permits to do various pieces of work. But I'm wondering whether there could be some simplification, certainly some clarification on what things actually require permits. And if there could be some simplification of permit requirements, for example, for someone who wishes to replace a door or a window or a roof, and they wish to change the color. If there are some standard colors that are acceptable, so it wouldn't require, if I have a white door and I would like to have a brown door, that I would have to pay for a permit. It is an added expense. I think there are a number of people who are opting not to do work because they cannot absorb the additional expense and delay of doing things, which further decreases the value of one's property. And so you may not get money for a permit, but you also will get a reduced amount of money on a welcome tax when that property sells. So is there some way of doing it, allowing homeowners the liberty of having some choice in what they want to do? You know, people are being reasonable. Obviously, if somebody wants to put in a purple door or something else, that should require a permit. I'm all in favor of that. But to have some standard colors, that would be acceptable. If you're replacing a roof, if my roof is 15 or 20 years old, I'm not going to have exactly the same color of shingle.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes onerous. And I think, for those of us who are seniors, who are on a fixed income, who don't have, or no longer working, it really becomes a problem in terms of things that we need to do to maintain our homes. And we need to maintain our homes to maintain the value of them. And it's to the town's benefit to do that. So could the town consider, please, simplifying the permit process and not requiring permits for so many little things?
Thank you so much. You bring a lot of very good points, and it's something that we're always debating. I always recommend everybody to call the urban planning department to see if you need a permit or not. Not everything needs a permit. For example, to change your roof, as experienced with Lauren, if you change it for the same color of tiles, we understand the variation in colors. I mean, age, technology, there's certain things that change, but if it is the same tone, a lot of times you might not require to have the same thing painted or the same color. You might not need a permit. But it's important to call them because they are the only ones who can tell you. Even I cannot tell you what requires a permit or not.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if there is a list of standard colors, for example, for doors or windows, that, if you're choosing to switch a white door for a brown door, it really becomes very subjective for a committee to say you can't do that. I feel for a committee to say you can't do that because it's not in keeping with the neighborhood. Most people are reasonable and they want to do something to improve the appearance, to maintain the quality of their house.
Yes, but that unfortunately is based on my experience. It's not all the time. That's not the case. However, it's not completely subjective because it's according to our SPAIP. It has a lot of regulations on what type of colors, for example, you can pick. You do have a lot of, for example, we recently had a case where somebody was changing for a color that, not the front door, but a side door that didn't coordinate with everything else. So we had to go back to the SPAIP to see what it said. And it says you have to keep at certain limitations how many colors you can use in a house, or try to stay with earthy tones, or if you had it. So it does have a lot of guidelines. It's not completely arbitrary, and we try to work mostly with the style of the house. But when I tell you, for example, that a house that it was built in the 60s has certain style and certain colors, most of us, including myself, that I love architecture and being I've been sitting on this board for a while. I cannot tell you what a 60s door looked like. So, it does require a little bit further intervention from us in a participation, and that's what PAC is. PAC is a group of people that most of them are in architects, or right now we're inviting somebody else who's an urban planner, or people who are design, who know a little bit more architecture than the average person. And the whole thing is because it is important, and not because of us, but because of Quebec as a rule telling us that we have to preserve the architecture of the town. So there are certain things that those are the bylaws, and we try to move it along, believe me. We try to go as fast as we can or to give as much information. But I also say not everything needs to have a permit, but the only way for us to find out is to call the urban planning department.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, well,
Go ahead, Ms. Faludi.
Rare opportunity. And I do want to comment. First of all, I want to tell Councillor Yulin that if you were to open the door to looking at a bylaw on gas lawnmowers, I would be a big fan. And that's how banning gas leaf blowers happened. People spoke up and they said it's time.
Absolutely, yeah.
that's
It's just that, the first time we're hearing this, so it's
Yeah.
something to consider.
Yeah, okay. About permits. I have a lot to say about permits, but I'm not going to say a lot. I've heard Councillor Torres say, call, you don't know until you call. The problem is, and we have called on 2 different occasions, they want pictures. There's no yes or no answer. Send me the pictures. Send me what you're going to do. Send me this. And even though the answer ends up being no, it's still a fairly onerous process.
Yeah.
That's one. Number 2, and I think people have this perception that if they do call, you're going to get a yes answer and it's going to cost you. So I think that the process has to be a little bit more transparent, and I would welcome seeing some standard guidelines that describe to people when they don't need a permit. Because people are afraid to call, and and especially if it's interior work, they'll do it themselves.
Yeah. If you read our bylaws, most of the things are specified in our bylaws. The problem is that the bylaws are very long, the zoning and building bylaws. It would take you forever to read them. So I think, and some of them is a matter of how you might interpret them or not. So the best bet is to call the town. And we do need information, as in, for example, I just got a permit to cut down a tree that is dead. And I went through the whole process that you go. I had to take photographs. I had to take my certificate of location. I had to do a series of steps. And the reason is some people in the past, for example, have cut down a tree that is not on their piece of land. But the only reason for us to know that that tree is on my land or not is from the certificate of location and the photographs. So before we say yes, maybe, or not, or these are the conditions or not, we need to have the documentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Je peux avoir quelqu'un pour proposer le lever de la séance, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je propose de lever la séance.
Merci, la conseillère Yulin. Je peux voir l'appui, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, je l'appuie.
Merci, la conseillère Torres. Tout en faveur.